afternoon. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Hot War. Welcome to Phil's Corner Live. Hope you're doing well. Hope your week has been a good one. Today is going to be a lot of fun because we have some big new releases, some big new kits to talk about. We've got, as you would have seen in the title, the likes of Arsenal and City to talk about, so lots of stuff. Welcome to Knowledge. It says new here, just started collecting to wear. Amazing. Welcome to the channel, Knowledge. I hope you enjoyed today's stream, and if you've got any questions, stick them in the chat, stick them in the chat as you've already done, Knowledge, and very happy to answer them. And if I can't, other people will be able to help. And also to Matthew, says hi Phil, hope you're well, mate. Looking forward to the stream. Just picked up the new Bari Special Edition shirt, the silver one with the kappa taping down the side. What a shirt indeed, Matthew. And we talked about that, of course, quite a lot on was it a couple of weeks ago? I was very close to picking up. If it wasn't for picking up the Boca shirt that I did, I think I would have gone for the Bari. But lovely stuff. And indeed, some love for the Jags jersey. This is all thanks to Stephen, who kindly sent the super chat. Sorry, I'm a bit hot on the mic there. Super chat on the on Tuesday's stream, requesting me to wear this. The ridiculous thing about this old Jags jersey, which is a bit big for me, but on the back, I think you'll be able to see. Imagine someone getting their own name on the back of a kit. Yes, that was me when I was, how old was I? Like in my teenage years when I got this when I was in Jacksonville. Don't get your name on the back of shirts. It does not improve the value of them at all, especially your first name. But there we go. I'm wearing it today, as I say, with the 77 of all numbers. But good stuff. So yeah, hi Daredevils. It's Happy Friday, Junior. Dolphins still better than Jags. It's hard to argue with that, but we'll see this year. I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll have a good year, but we'll see. And Ian, hi JPR. So busy start to the stream already, guys. Welcome, whether you're new or whether you are an old timer. Knowledge says, who makes best quality outside of Nike and Adidas? Great question. This is an interesting one to answer. We can answer this in many different ways. If we're talking about the quality of the shirt itself, the quality of the materials, etc., then I think that's a separate conversation to who makes the best designs. But in terms of my favourite manufacturers, Knowledge, I'm a big Hummel fan. I do a lot of work with Hummel, but I really like Hummel from both a design and quality perspective. I think other names to look out for, if you're looking for kind of a bit of a niche shout, I like a lot of what Mizuno are doing. They're an old brand who are doing some more stuff. So they're kind of a retro brand, which I quite like. So they're another one. But there's different ones out there. They're my shouts. What does the rest of the chat think? What do you guys think? Who are your favourite brands outside of the big two, outside of Nike and Adidas? Stick them in the chat. But welcome everyone. As we begin, before we get into the reviews, and we'll start today by reviewing both the City and the Arsenal home shirt. So we'll do that on stream and I'll talk about it. We'll jump into the pictures and then I'll place it on my tier list, my ongoing tier list, which started at the start of the year. Macron is a great shout, Ian. I really like that shout. Yeah, so we're going to do that very, very shortly. Before we begin, especially as we've got a few new people today, please subscribe, guys. This is a small channel. We do weekly streams, semi-regular videos, but I'm just doing this as part of part of other stuff. But if you subscribe, it really helps the channel out, and you get notification when I go live. Lots of content on the channel already, which you can enjoy, but there's stuff to come as well. So please subscribe. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed today. Also, leave a like and a comment, and whether that's a comment in the chat, like the guys have been doing already, or if it's a comment on the video, again, really helps. And finally, if you like today and you think, oh yeah, this is quite cool, I'd like to get more involved in the community and join. If you'd like to join a community of collectors from around the world, I have a Patreon. There's a bunch of really cool benefits. Check that out in the description if that is of interest. But guys, as I say, it's been a busy start already, and thank you for your comments. As we go through, keep questions coming in. If I miss them, please just nudge me or ask me again. So just catching up before we get in. Robert, good to see Robert, who's jumped in. Eric as well mentions shout out to the jersey. Dedal says, hopefully we talk about those new Adidas pre-match kits. Talk about something fresh and innovative. Yeah, we won't rank pre-match shirts on the hot wall, but we can definitely talk about them, and if they come up, we should definitely talk about them. Kappa, another great shout from Matthew there, and indeed JPR, Kappa, Hummel, Macron, a strong three there. Really good stuff. Let's get to some shirts, guys. Let's quickly show the hot wall first. So if I just switch over, here you can see our tier list, and it's a very simple, it's very cluttered, but it's a very simple tier list. There's 4 tiers. My favourite shirts of the year, the hottest shirts of the year, are stuck on the right hand side here in the Volcano tier. Not many shirts get into this tier, but there are a handful from some big brands, some small brands, different teams, national team, club team, etc. And then on the left we have our coldest shirts, and not in a good sense, not in a positive sense. My least favourite shirts of the year. There haven't been too many that I've put in that tier. The majority land in these 2 tiers here. At the candle tier, the shirts, they're a little bit hot. There's a hint of something, but they're not quite good enough for the higher tiers than the flames tier. So this is our tier list. And of course, if we have a tier list, oh, 1 second. Just need to switch over my screens there. There we go. If we have a tier list, we need some shirts to put on the tier list, and that is where we go to. Not the smoothest transition. We go to football shirt culture. Shout out to football shirt culture. This stream isn't sponsored by them or anything, but they do a good job of chronicling new releases. And today we've got a lot to cover. We didn't stream last week, so we'll be going for probably to at least 4. I think we'll cap it at 4. So we don't, spend too much time. But anyway, we're going to start with our reviews of the City and Arsenal shirts. Now, if we start with City, this is obviously quite a big release. If we think about kind of Puma and the selection of Puma teams, City are far and away one of the biggest Puma teams, one of the biggest clubs in the brand's roster. So you'd expect Puma to put their best foot forward for City, given the profile of the team and how important they are to Puma as a brand. The big story here is the collar and cuff pattern. This is the dialing code, I believe it's 0161 for Manchester, and it's kind of funny, isn't it, really, because no one really uses landline numbers now, do they? But that's what it is. Honestly, the story's fine. I don't think it's too interesting to me personally. Obviously, if you're from Manchester, you'd have more of a connection. But I do think it is a bit of a kind of archaic idea. Again, that is what it is. I think even despite those reservations for me personally, if the pattern looked quite strong, if it looked quite good. Also, guys, let me know if my mic is clipping too much. It sounds like it's a little bit hot. Maybe I'm just too excited today. But if it is, and I need to turn it down, let me know. I think if this collar and cuff pattern was good, just in and of itself, I'd warm to it. Honestly, I think it looks a little bit lackluster. And I actually saw my former colleague, Stephen McInerney, who I worked with on with footy.com, at footy.com. I don't want to misquote you here, but he's a massive City fan. He has a huge YouTube channel for City. He put out a tweet a couple of weeks ago saying, based on the leaks, thank you, Knowledge. Yeah, I need to roll it down a bit. He put out a tweet recently saying that the pattern looks like the trim you'd get on a pair of boxers from Aldi or Lidl. And I can't unsee that. I do think the aesthetic of that pattern, it's not great. To me, it looks a little bit too... It's a bit clunky. I honestly think it looks a little bit half like half baked, half finished. I don't love it at all. Hey Stephen, I have worn the jersey and it is good. It's comfy. It's like it's oversized, but it's quite nice given the weather is pretty good. Even though I'm wearing a hat today, but no, it's looking good, man. Thank you again for your super chat on Tuesday. So yeah, the little boxes thing, the Aldi boxes thing is maybe a little bit harsh, but I do think it's a bit weak. Now, also the collar, as a few of you guys have mentioned, Dead obviously the collar's throwing him off. Want to have a pattern throughout the whole of the collar, and I think the collar style is certainly not my favourite. You see the way the collar tapers here, because it cuts off the pattern so abruptly. I think it really accentuates the kind of how bad that looks. If it was just a solid, the same thickness, at least you'd keep the pattern in there. Again, it honestly to me just looks pretty weak, and given that is basically the only main feature of this kit, that's the only real thing to kind of look at, I just don't think it's a good execution. A plain body is fine. It is of course a home kit, so you're not going to expect too much there necessarily, but the whole construction of the shirt is fairly underwhelming in comparison to the Arsenal shirt, which we'll get onto, which is a lot more interesting in that area. So I'm left quite underwhelmed, I must say. And it really, the strength of this kit, obviously, it lives or dies on the basis of that pattern in the collar and cuffs. I think the pattern, to me, looks a bit naff, a bit cheap. Robert says, it's a dialing code. I thought it was the number of FFP infractions. Of course, the 151 jokes do about themselves. Again, I think if it's hard to say what I would change about the pattern, but for me, I think it's a bit too literal with the numbers there. I think it looks even worse when you see they've tried to add the word mark detail, but it just gets the city detail, but it gets very cluttered with the numbers. So all in all, I'm just not a fan of this one. I don't think it's an absolute shambles. I wouldn't put it, in the Ice Cube tier, for example, but I do think it is in the lower end of the Cannell tier. So as we rank the shirt, we'll place it on our tier list, and we will just do a very quick look and see how low would I rank the shirt. I hate to say it, City fans, but I would probably go as low as not where I'm placing it here. I'd probably go as low as I'm feeling like here. It's definitely a below average shirt for me. Not a fan. Puma have done some good shirts for City over the years, but this is not one of my favourites. We're also tracking a brand's performance over a year, so this is roughly a very, very rough, very approximated average for a brand, given all their shirts. So that's Puma there. We'll bump them down slightly, and there we go. Steven says, great job on the stream, and when you get a chance, we'll screen it and give it a stand and show it off. Will be great. Thanks for showing off again. Oh, well, Steven, I did briefly turn around at the end. I'll have to remind me at the end. Sorry, at the beginning I did spin around, but I will stand up later on. The Champions League kit will never be top. Probably one of my favourites. Is that the third kit, Daredevil? I just wrote about that for a piece for Football Show Collective, actually, and I talked about the fact that we simply didn't see that shirt enough. It was only worn, I believe, twice in the league, and that was including the Spurs game this week. So there we go. That's City. What about Arsenal? Now, looking at the Arsenal kit, there's a lot of things which immediately jump out to me. The story, or the main focus of the promotional material, surrounds the crest. We've got the Canon only crest, the Canon icon crest, which I believe is the first time in the Premier League era that Arsenal have this on their home shirt. They've had it for some away and third shirts, but this, again, Canon version of the crest, which harks back to the version of the crest that Arsenal had, I believe, most recently in the late 80s. They had a version a bit more of an old school version, but again a Canon only style. So that, as it in and of itself, is a nice point of difference. I think it's interesting to see more and more clubs embrace alternate forms of crests, and I think it's no surprise. I think they've been quite popular. It's no surprise to see that brought into the home shirt again, and it is a historical connection, so I like that. It looks good. These, when you have home shirts, sorry guys, a bit loud again on the mic. When you have home shirts, it's important to find those points of difference, because if you're going to release a new kit every year, I think it's quite nice to have a shirt, have a detail like this, which you can change, and it just provides something different, because you know that a shirt is going to be largely quite similar year on year for a big team's home shirt. But that's nice. But there's obviously a lot more to talk about. I think just in terms of the construction of the shirt, and by that I mean the paneling, the way that the shirt is built in terms of its the various sections, I think this looks really strong. And of course this is very similar, if not the same, I believe, as the most recent round of of international kits, and it looks just as good here as some of those international kits did. Jamie says 1990 was the when Arsenal first used the crest on the shirt. Thank you, Jamie. Good info there. So, when those international kits came out at the end of last year, we talked about the kind of Teamgeist inspired elements. But I must say, the more I see this template, the more I think it does really stand on its own. This isn't just a quick kind of retro smash and grab, a quick kind of retro nod for the sake of a retro nod. I do think it stands strong in and of itself. The way that Adidas can use this section of the shirt in a tertiary colour, in this blue, I think looks really strong. And it's funny because the Puma template has a similar kind of section, but it's a lot less prominent and it's a lot less interesting, simply. I mean, obviously from the front you don't get to appreciate it, but even from the side, it's there's very little you can do with that. But whereas with the Arsenal shirt, this section actually blends into the shorts, which again, you can get a picture here. Some people didn't like that as much, but I personally think it adds a really nice kind of silhouette, a really nice flow to the shirt. Robert says strong shirt, but the back has baby bodysuit diaper vibes. Yeah, a lot of people don't like the back of the shirt, and it is quite a known to be a very white shirt, again when viewed from behind particularly. I personally think it's quite interesting. Obviously Arsenal as well have had similar shirts where the whole side panels have been white. I believe Adidas did this, was it 2020? And there's been various shirts that Arsenal have done, almost like an Ajax style. But I personally think this take feels very fresh. It feels quite different, quite daring for a home shirt, about as daring as you'd expect. Yeah, it's interesting. Apparently there's some frustration or should I say criticism around the amount of blue. Personally, I think again it's a point of difference, which I would rather see a brand do something like this than stick so close to the status quo that they don't, they basically provide what might as well have been the same shirt as the year before. This certainly isn't the same shirt, and the amount of blue I do think personally is quite strong, despite the white and blue and the obvious connotations there. Al says, now I'm wearing Arsenal jersey 1999. Yeah, that was another one. Am I right in saying that was another one that had the side panels? I think it is, if I remember correctly. So I really must commend Adidas. I think they are, at the moment, based both on the international kits and some of these early releases, I think they are a cut above their closest rivals, Nike and Puma. Now, in some ways, a lot could be said about the collar. This is obviously completely standard, but that in and of itself is quite different too, particularly Nike, who have really tried to change up their collars a lot this year. And in some ways, you could argue that's a lot more daring, and I think, this is perhaps quite safe in that department. But honestly, of all the elements of a shirt, the collar is one where it's so easy to overcook it. It's so easy to go too far. So I personally would rather have a more standard collar, given that the rest of the shirt actually does have a lot more going on, and it is actually relatively quite different again to some other recent Arsenal shirts. BX Gunner. So it looks like a bottle or an hourglass. I'm not impressed. It's very funny, BX. That is one of the things which I quite like, and it is a very different look. I talked about the word silhouette. The bottle shape. I think I can understand that, there's going to be the jokes, the memes. Personally, I don't think, like, for me, I could see the hourglass more than I could see the bottle. I think, as a shirt, as a design, this is a lot more interesting to me. And honestly, as a Liverpool fan, I'm very jealous of Arsenal. This compared to Liverpool's home shirt, I do think this is much, much better, personally. But maybe that speaks more to my appreciation for Adidas over Nike at the moment. So I'm largely very high on this shirt. And again, I think I personally, I can understand some of the reservations, especially, again, the amount of white. But I think the shirt really does look strong. And I think this is going to look excellent on the pitch, especially in tandem with those shorts. I really dig it. I really like it. I think for me, it's actually one of the better home shirts I've seen across all teams this year. And I much, much preferred City. In fact, I would go as far to say I'm already thinking something in the Flames tier. That's our second tier. And quite high in the Flames tier. You can see a number of other Adidas international kits there. The likes of Boca, my guys, Boca Juniors. But I do think we're looking at something around where that Germany shirt is. That's how high I rate the shirt. I do rate it quite a bit. JPR says sure look good long sleeve. Yeah, I shared on my Twitter, JPR, a shot of the long sleeve, which did look really good. Briefly as well, there was a couple of other points I talked about on Twitter. One of them was that it's a shame that Adidas have moved away from the actual sleeve taping that we saw from the shirts of the most recent World Cup a couple of years ago. They've reverted to the kind of thin plastic style for the player spec, which is definitely a downgrade. So it's a shame that seemed to be just kind of a one-off for the 2022 round of international kits. But anyway, this Arsenal shirt, I actually like it. I mean, there's a good space here. We're going to go there. I'm really, really positive about it. And of course, being an Adidas shirt, we will bump up Adidas. But I would love to hear your thoughts, guys, on either the Arsenal or the City shirts. Again, two massive releases. Of course, one of those two teams will be crowned Premier League champions at the weekend. City in the driver's seat, but you never know. Arsenal may sneak in. Has there been any word on whether the teams are going to wear these shirts? They often do, don't they? So I would assume they are going to wear them at the weekend, but I might be wrong. And that would be really interesting if, for example, if they do wear them and one of them wins, that's going to add a lot of excitement around the kit for sure. Ian says when you have a main colour with the side panel of a different colour, it has the effect of making you mainly see the main colour, thus having a slimming effect. Fat Arsenal fans will love this. Fantastic. It's oh yes, it like this is probably the least red there's been on an Arsenal home kit for a very long time, I would assume, like, because there is so little on the back given the construction. But again, I personally really like that as a kind of, sure, this is quite white and there is the whole Spurs thing, but to be honest, for me, my approach with rival colours, I often think, like, I would argue that in this example, white is as much a part of the Arsenal kit as anything else, as the red. If you had a purely red kit, it wouldn't be an Arsenal kit. I think own it. Like, again, this is not like Adidas or the club trying to be daring, trying to add white for the sake of, rustling feathers. They're part of their colours. Embrace it. I personally think there's still enough red. It's an interesting one, really interesting one. Of course, again, we'll have plenty of time to talk about this in the coming months. And when we see it on pitch, of course, there's going to be lots to say. So it says, when you get a chance to read the last comment, Phil. Yes, on the jersey, Stephen. Yeah, at the end, I'll stand up. What I will say is at the start of this stream, I did do a quick spin round as well. But yes, we'll get to that later on. Good stuff there from Arsenal. And even though the City shirt wasn't to my taste, still some stuff to talk about there. But of course, we've got more, and the rest of the show, we're going to dig into some other new releases, starting with Lyon, Olympic Lyon. Staying with Adidas, it's worth noting that we have, again, the same base kind of construction. This is, of course, in the replica spec. And I think there's something to be said about utilizing those sections of the construction of the template in an asymmetric style. And again, because the template allows, because there's quite a prominent section here which can be recolored to match the design, I think that is a simple but a really effective thing to do. So I like that, and it shows for me, I think, again, it shows for me again, I think, the strength of the template. So that's good to see. The design honestly doesn't do too much for me on the front. This kind of gradient with the middle, it's fine, but it's not too exciting. I personally am not the biggest fan of that. Gradients in general, I'm not a big fan of in general when it comes to kits. And I do think in this example, often one of the worst things about a gradient for me is when the rest of the kit, you've got all these solid sections, right? All these kind of full block colours, and then the gradient feels like very much an afterthought, like, oh quick, we need to add an element on the middle. Now that's maybe being a bit harsh, but honestly, just solid colours would probably just improve the kit 2-3 times over for me personally. And Dedal says the collar is bothering me just because the colours are not even. That's interesting. So assuming you're talking about Lyon here and not Arsenal, I mean, I think it is kind of curious to see the way that the top of the collar extends kind of further out than the central stripes. There's an interesting inside neck detail. I think that's a couple of rivers, I believe. But overall, I think this is a little bit underwhelming, which is a shame, because I do think, again, there's some nice usage of the asymmetry to match the central design. But it is probably not much higher than the City shirt. I'd probably put it a little bit higher in the Canal tier for the ranking, but it's definitely not pushing the Flames tier. It's not entering that sort of territory for me personally. So as we resize the shirt here, I'm thinking something in this kind of region. We'll go here for Lyon and Adidas again. So there they are. Interested to see again. The more we see this Adidas template, I think there's going to be a lot we can talk about. Hopefully we see some club sides do what the likes of like Colombia, for example, did, or Wales did, where they used to kind of have a designed portion or a more kind of obvious pattern in the side panels. That looks really sweet. Other kits made use of that kind of Teamgeist-esque section a bit more with a pattern. So there's a lot that can be done, and I do think, again, at least in the early stages of the year, Adidas look like they are separating themselves, at least from the likes of Nike and Adidas. We've got more though, guys. Let's continue with FC Groningen. And this is Roby, a brand who have built a steady base, particularly in the Netherlands, which I believe is where the brand are from. This shirt, the sponsor is a really unfortunate addition here. The clash of green is that this is the kind of colour clash which really really kind of grates in you. It's just different enough that it looks like, just visually it looks bad. And of course, this will be the company's colours, but because it's so similar but not the same, for me it's a real eyesore. It's very large as well, and it's breaking up the design. This kind of style, the kind of Porto style, the kind of braces style, not my favourite in shirts, and I think because we have it broken up on the back as well, it's a small thing but it is a negative. So this one is underwhelming. The collar is fine, again in an age, in an era where we've seen some very unusual collars. This is actually one of the relatively standard ones. Interested to see what looks like a kind of 4-leaf clover on the top there in gold. Not sure what the story is there. But I would say overall this one is probably something in the mid counter tier, trending towards the bottom of the counter tier for me personally. Roby as a brand, I do think are worth keeping tabs on. And they have, I think they're certainly a brand who, with a lot of their away shirts particularly, or their third shirt, special edition shirts, they've shown an appetite for quite a lot of daring designs, which is good to see. And I think as a small brand, that's a way to put yourselves on the map, of course, is by being willing to push the boat out. But the Groningen shirt there, I'd say is something more like this. And you can see Roby ranked quite highly at the moment, but we will just move them down ever so slightly. But at the moment, I've got them above the likes of Umbro, Hummel, even New Balance, even Kappa. So that's how much I like the brand. They've not had many shirts released this year. But that is the Groningen shirt. What about the Hoffenheim shirt? This is from Homer, the Spanish manufacturer. Hoffenheim shirts are often a little bit underwhelming in terms of their design. Largely, you're looking at things like subtly different shades of blue or small subliminal tonal elements in terms of their home kits. There's very little to say about this one. Honestly, it is quite disappointing as a design. You've got these pinstripes, but again with the gradient, I just have them as solid pinstripes. I just think it would look better. Gradients can be used well, but that to me just looks very, very underwhelming. The collar as well, I'm not a big fan. Similar to our conversation on the City shirt, when you have collars like this where you have like a solid section and then a section, like another layer which tapers off, that's just not my favourite style. So to me this is actually I'm quite low on this as a design. You've got the usual sponsor there, which is fine, but it is definitely in the region, perhaps lower than the City shirt for me personally. And where did we rank that? Yeah, that was there. I do think I would put this Hoffenheim shirt towards the very bottom of the counter tier. Sadly, they simply haven't had a lot of good home shirts. I would say even in their history, which it sounds harsh. But I would definitely put this one again towards our bottom tier. Now I won't put it quite that low, but I do think we're looking at something more like so City was here. I think something like this for the Hoffenheim shirt. And Homer, of course, very highly ranked on this tier list, but we will bump them down given that ranking of the Hoffenheim shirt. But overall, they've still done some good shirts. I forget exactly which shirt it was that put them this high up, but they have had some good shirts. Robert says, Roby usually put clovers on their products. Oh, interesting. Thanks for that insight, Robert. I did not know that, but that does explain the clover detail. It did seem a bit random, but that makes a lot of sense. And we're back on Roby. So in fact, we can see the clover. So that's a really interesting brand mark, isn't it? I don't hate that. It is quite quite unusual. But here we go with Fortuna Sittard. Now this immediately is catching my attention for a number of reasons. Firstly, if we look at the collar and cuff pattern, this one is well executed, and I believe, looking at the kind of execution of that looks to be a pattern within the fabric. A small thing, but it's an improvement on the print, for example, in terms of quality and the kind of look at it. So that's really strong. A good start there. Obviously, the design throughout the body is almost completely plain, but when you've got collar and cuffs which have a bit more to them, that's not a bad thing. And if anything, I would actually say sometimes it's quite nice to make those areas to style the shirt and leaving your the base of your kit plain. And this is a home shirt as well, so as a formula for like a good home shirt, I like that. I do like the club crest. Quite fun to see the character there, the shape of it. Lots which you can say about that, even just the old school football. And the back of the kit has an interesting detail here. I don't mind that at all. An area of the shirt which is often neglected by even the biggest brands, but Roby have made use of it there. Fun kind of custom name set as well. But this is excellent, and I think this is exactly what I'd want to see more of from Roby. There actually is a pattern, I think, in the body of the shirt, which I would assume is just a generic pattern for the brand rather than bespoke to the team. I like it a lot. The betting sponsor is regrettable, but that is sadly a fixture in the modern game. I think this is excellent. I think this is actually like flame steer for me, and I would say lower to mids flame steer. My first impression of this is very good, and it's not a shirt I've seen before today, but I really like it. This is Roby, I think, at their best. Nice details. I think they're one of those brands who do have a good balance. They can do both crazy and considered quite well, I would say. Some brands are kind of one-trick ponies. They only do one or the other. I do think Roby have a lot about them. And I'd go as high as here for the Fortuna Sittard shirt. I am a big fan of that. And of course, we will bump Roby up as well a little bit on account of that. Good stuff for Fortuna Sittard. One of the better shirts so far. This doesn't look great in the light in there, does it? But I do think, again, that here we get a really good shot of the colours. I like it a lot. What about Universidad Católica de Murcia Club de Football? Apologies for my accent. UCAM Murcia. Is that how you say a C in Spanish? Either way, our boys Hummel coming at us with a special edition shirt. Essentially looks to be a blackout shirt, which, you guys know my feelings on blackout shirts. I largely feel like the trend has long gone. The shirt here does have an interesting subliminal pattern, which looks to me to be quite nice. I don't mind that at all. And again, in an age where we've seen a lot of blackout shirts, this one sadly kind of gets a bit caught in the pack. It doesn't do a lot to separate itself from other blackout shirts, even though it is quite nice. I think in isolation, or if we were just judging this on the basis of the kit, regardless of the trend, I think this one actually has some potential, has some legs. I would go as far as to say this one probably would be an easy inclusion in the flame steer. But shirts are contextual, and we should always assess them as part of the bigger picture. And I do think, because we've seen so many designs which are tonal or blackout shirts of this style, it does knock it down a little bit. Now, I think despite that, I am still broadly quite high in the kit, because I think, again, the use of that pattern adds a lot of interest to the body, and it's a nice kind of style. It almost looks like polka dots, or kind of, I can't really make out what it is, but I do like that a lot. So it's kind of hovering. I wouldn't go much higher than maybe the border of the Flames tier. And I think we'll leave it just at the top of the Cannon tier. For the reasons mentioned, I think, again, because it is a little bit of a kind of, well, black eye shirts of a dime a dozen, really. But not bad at all. If you're going to get in on the black hat trend, you might as well do it in this sort of way. I do think it is well executed. Yeah, I think something here feels reasonable. Let's go there. And Hummel, ever so slightly bumped down, but not bad at all. Not bad at all from UCAM Murcia. Let's keep it rolling, guys, and let's go back to Homer with Greenock Morton from the Scottish Championship. Now, the first thing that jumps out is that gold third colour, tertiary colour, and it adds a real kind of nice pop with the blue and the white of the club. So, and it even folds the sponsor. I don't know if that's been recoloured, but that is an example of at least the colours synergising very well, so that's good to see. I'm not a big fan of details, patterns which are kind of word based like this. To me, they're a little bit kind of cheap, and the details as well on, I believe, the sleeve being fully sublimated. From a design perspective, it's definitely a step down. It's a reality for a lot of teams outside the top divisions to have fully sublimated details. It's not necessarily a problem, but from a quality perspective, it's definitely lacking. So I do like a lot of the decisions here, but I think from a quality perspective, this is let down. And ultimately, for me personally, I'm not a big fan of this style. Another recolor sponsor, so they've done a good job with their sponsors. All the sponsors match the design of the shirt, and that is a really strong thing, so huge credit for that. And again, hoops on the back, so there's quite a lot to be said about that. But I would say ultimately this is definitely not one of my favorite styles of pattern, having the word based pattern. I assume these are going to be kind of season ticket holders, and it's fun. Obviously you can find your name in the kit and that sort of stuff, but definitely not my favorite style. So some really good decisions here, and again, like particularly with the sponsor applications and the sponsors all being the right color, big fan of that, as with the continued hoops on the back. But from a quality perspective, we're let down a little bit. So this is kind of like a mid to high counter tip. Not bad at all from Homer and Greenock Morton. Into the Greenock Morton shirt, sorry, if the names are ex-players, that's fine. If it's crowdfunding their fan names, then less cool. Given the number of names, I would assume it's fans. In fact, let's have a look. Club members and season ticket holders. So it's fine. Again, it's a classic thing, and a lot of clubs have done this over the years. I personally don't like it. Like, from a design perspective, like looking at it as objectively as I can, it's not my favourite approach. Steve says there's something in your head. Yeah, rocking the hat to keep my hair in check somewhat, but it's definitely not. I mean, it's starting to warm up here in the UK, or at least last weekend it was pretty good. So definitely not really hat weather, especially indoors, but I won't let that stop me. Where are Homer? There they are. I think we'll have to do a bit of a shift if we just do that. There we go. That is the Greenock Morton, not Martin as I called it earlier. Very good, very good. Guys, just want to say as well, thank you for tuning in. If you are new to the channel, if you've just stumbled in, maybe you're an Arsenal City fan, you can check the review out earlier on in the stream. Go and look at that. if you are interested in that, and stick around if you want to see some more reviews like that. And if you want to see more videos, more content on the channel, be sure to subscribe as well. You can do that and join the Phil's Corner community. And Ian saying you might be tempted to get a shirt if you had your name on. Other potential customers would probably swerve it. Yeah, that's the kind of thing. Like, I think if you're a fan, you would still be okay with it. But certainly if you're not a fan, it's a very kind of specific. It does narrow the audience down, or the appeal down somewhat. But I think just aesthetically as well, it's just not my favourite style. What about Bodø Glimt? No, that's definitely not how you say their name, but these guys coming out of Norway. This is the new away kit, and hard to get a proper handle on the shirt given the lighting and the styling of the photos here. My first impression is that I think the star pattern here is a little bit basic, a little bit clip art, but the shirt as a whole has some things going for it. I think in terms of the colour, this kind of pink shade, for me, I preferred an example of a similar kind of idea, which was another Puma shirt, was the most recent, or the 23-24 City third shirt, that Manchester City third shirt. For me, it's obviously different. You've got the lightning instead, but I think it's that third colour, or the application colour, which I would say having a bit more red in it. It's a bit less kind of pink, but I do think it looks a little bit stronger. So this is fine. I think I like the idea more than I like the execution. It should be noted that again, talking about recoloured sponsors, all of the sponsors are in the pink. But yeah, consolation shirts, again, we've seen a number of them, and I think this one's a little bit too basic for me, especially given the profile of Puma. And you know, this is these guys have been in Europe, of course, as well, so I think they could have done a bit more with that theme. It doesn't have to be necessarily a lot crazier, but to me, the kind of makeup of the stars, it's a bit too vanilla for me. So ultimately, I'd say we're looking at a kind of mid candle tier, maybe mid to high. It would be good to see more pictures of this one to really get a handle on the colours, etc. But that is what I would say. And we've got Stravo put Savos EP Farmers League. I mean, I must say I did really enjoy the banter, particularly from some of the German teams, with the relative success of German teams compared to English teams. So whilst, you know, the whole kind of discussion is a bit kind of silly, I actually do think well, assuming you mean EPL, because you put EP, but assuming you mean EPL, Stravo, I did enjoy again some of the banter. I think, was it Mats Hummels or someone kind of, or was it? Yes, someone from German football had quite a funny pushback, didn't they, on Twitter recently, so that was quite funny. So Bodø Glimt, I think we can go something like here for them. And this is another Puma shirt. We'll nudge them down ever so slightly. I probably should get a spam filter, shouldn't I, on my chat? But I thought there was something, but I'll have to really look at that again. But there we go. And just jumping up from the comment, or through the comments, Daniel says, reminds me of the MLS Minnesota. Yeah, that one's certainly, from a colour perspective, a lot more daring. I think ultimately a bit more interesting, but yeah, I think when it comes to kind of star-based kits, I mean, look, we had the Northern Lights here in the UK, of all places. Like, even off in my back garden we could see them, and the colours were so rich. You could do so much more, not just crazy colours, but like within the base of the shirt, maybe the stars could just be a bit more interesting from a colour perspective. Why not have them iridescent or what have you? You know, I think that would really get the kit going. And Ian's saying as well, on the Bodø Glimt with Colin Hemisphere pattern, is the best shirt on this feed so far. I do like it, but I personally think they could have done a lot more with the theme. Since make sure Sam has been up show of the jersey. Yes, I know I keep saying I'll do it later, but when the stream ends, I will do so, Stephen. But there is a quick. I did spin round at the start as well. You can check that out indeed. And it's looking great as always, of the colours as well as the black and purples. We come to Crewe Alexandra. And this is with the brand FBT, who I believe have been with Crewe for quite a while now. And despite being a smaller brand, they do a lot. They really do have a strong focus on patterns. And this kind of fractal pattern here, it's good. It adds interest to the kit. I think, you know, in terms of a home shirt, you're looking for things like that to really kind of separate. Again, we talked about those points of difference. It's a good way. Because the pattern isn't actually that crazy. It's relatively like it's dialed back enough that it doesn't detract from the overall look. It's still clearly a red home shirt, but it adds that element of interest. A simple but well executed collar and cuff pattern. We don't need that. Simple but effective. And the crest application, interesting here, but I don't hate that at all. A very kind of quite an old school looking sponsor, and indeed very old school given the age of this brand. But anyway, I think this one actually is a kind of upper candle tier, trending towards the flame tier, but not quite that high. But I do think it's strong work from FBT, and again, you know, it's showing up some of the bigger brands, some of the much bigger brands, with they're hardly, you know, it's hardly going to win any awards, but I do think they've achieved that pattern quite well. And you know, it's a small thing, guys, but we have to mention it goes on the back, and that is something which, again, many shirts don't have. As simple as that should be, I do think it's worth pointing out, given how many shirts fail to achieve that. So that is the Crewe shirt. We'll go here, I think. And FBT, now, are they on the list? I believe they are. Look at that, they're almost exactly where we've just ranked that Crewe shirt. So we'll nudge them up very slightly. I think FBT do a lot in Thailand and surrounding countries. This Crewe shirt has Nuremberg vibes. It does have Nuremberg vibes, absolutely. Absolutely, and it's definitely one of those which, yeah, I think because of the pattern, it kind of darkens the colour, doesn't it? Darkens the red. It does almost look maroon with the black as well. Yeah, it would certainly not look out of place in Germany. So there we go. That is our first page. We've got more to rank though, guys. We are a little over halfway in the stream. Thanks again for tuning in. It's been these Thursday streams have been busy recently, and I do really appreciate the support. Hopefully we'll get a load more viewers when I'm basically looking into streaming simultaneously on Twitter, and that I think could add quite a lot. Well, we'll see. We'll basically trial it and see if it works. It might not work at all, but I think in terms of increasing the audience size, that could definitely be something we try and incorporate. Now, this Santos shirt, I don't think they're wearing on the pitch, are they? So we won't review this because for the hot wall, we're only reviewing shirts that are going to be worn actually in competitive fixtures, and we're not including keeper kits as well, just to streamline it a bit more, because there are literally going to be hundreds and hundreds of kits. So I don't think we're going to end up ranking this one, even though it has a lot of nice features. Now, it is black and gold, which again is one of those overdone themes, but the kind of the baggy fit, the taping, there's a lot to like, even the kind of sponsor. So go and have a look at that one. Were it a match shirt, and again, do correct me anyone if I'm wrong on this, but were this a match kit, this definitely has some of those elements which can push it towards the Volcano tier. You've got the old Umbro logo, a lot to like there. Sadly, it's not eligible for the hot ball, so we'll move on to Aberdeen. Now, I think this is quite interesting coming after the Crewe shirt, because we've got a similar kind of idea here of a base red shirt with a pattern, in this case a kind of checkerboard pattern, I think this might be a catalogue pattern or a template. By that I mean a design which is not bespoke, which can be selected by multiple teams, a kind of off-the-shelf look. I may be wrong in that. This to me is a largely unspectacular look, even though I do think checkerboards as a theme are quite strong. I do like the shirt. I do think it looks at home with that checkerboard, and indeed it goes on the back as well. So that is it sounds like it's such a small thing, but it is a point of it's a positive point for the kit. So despite looking a little bit generic, I actually do like this one. And again, the kind of warped checkerboard, we've seen kind of various Croatia shirts do this, haven't we? I don't mind that at all. And I think what I like about it, if we compare it on front and back, it adds a kind of, it's one of those where it adds something from it just being a plain red shirt, and ultimately, I think this is interesting. And you can see in the replica style, but with the new Adidas template, they haven't recolored or done anything different with those side panels, and it'll be interesting to see, like for example the grey there. I don't know if it would look better actually, but that's something which would be interesting to see. Ultimately, I think this one is a kind of mid to high candidate, something around the Crewe shirt. And to be honest, even though FBT are kind of, they're absolutely tiny as a brand compared to Adidas, but I think they've done just as good a job really with Crewe as Adidas have done with Aberdeen. So I would actually put this slightly below the Crewe shirt. Maybe something like here feels good. It's fine. It's a relatively standard kit, but I don't hate it at all. And I do think, again, Adidas, generally speaking, are impressing me. I think it's even a standard Adidas template looks cool. And that's the thing. I think like the floor of an Adidas kit this season is going to be actually a lot higher than some other shirts. I just think it is a relatively strong template. I think the construction's good. This is again only a replica, so you don't have all the kind of bells and whistles. But yeah, I think again, if you're going to do it like this and have the pattern on the back like this, I think it looks good. I think it looks strong. We come to Charleroi and Kipster, the brand Kipster, who I don't think we've even had a shirt from them this year. In fact, I have a feeling that we maybe did one or two shirts from them last year. I ranked one or two shirts from them, but I don't remember. Yes, excuse me. Certainly, I can't see them on the list. We'll come back if we do see them. So Charleroi from Belgium. In terms of the design of the shirt, first impression is that there's very little in the way of deviation from a standard black and white striped shirt. Now, that as a style is fine, but I think, really the prominence of the sponsors immediately jumps out. It is a betting sponsor, which is unfortunate. I don't mind the choice of gold, but I think in terms of size and placement, the balance feels off for me. The brand logo is a very I would say a very bad one, or a very unexciting one from the brand Kipster. And because you've got the collarbone sponsors there, they're bigger than that. It feels, your eyes very much are taken to the sponsor first, and ultimately in terms of the placement and the sizing, they're a bit too dominant for me. The collar is fine, better than some we've seen, better than again some of those kind of overly faffy ones like the ones we talked about earlier in the stream. But yeah, it really, the Unibet sponsor really does jump out to you there in the gold. What I will say is I'm glad that they've got solid stripes, because again it would have been very easy to break them up, and you see a lot of designs do that. And I was hoping we'd see a bit more on the back of the shirt, but we can't seem to. So I think this one is definitely below average, and I would say the Kipster logo as well is kind of bothering me in terms of its style and the size of it especially. Striped shirts are difficult. It's very hard to innovate striped shirts year on year, but this is certainly not a classic. Having said that, they've avoided some of the pitfalls which other brands do fall into, and it could certainly be ranked a lot lower. So my impression of this one is a kind of low candle. I think that seems about right. So let's just grab it here, and we will do. Let's just trim it. We don't need to do this, but I've started, so I'll finish. That is Charleroi and Kipster. I think we're still looking at something around here. You know, we're not going to push it too low. But I believe that is our first Kipster kit. It's not. Is it an own brand? I'm pretty sure we've seen a Kipster kit before, but maybe I'm wrong on that. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, I think. Sorry. My goodness. This always happens on stream. I mean, we're over an hour in now, and I just start yawning loads, and I can't shake it. Clearly, I do not get enough sleep, but there we go. That is Charleroi and the brand Kipster. We will see many better shirts this year. Equally, we will see some much worse shirts. Now we come back to Homer and Finn Harps. Now, this is not for the faint-hearted. Finn Harps, an Irish team. And it's funny we mentioned the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis. Well, here we go. We have a shirt inspired by that. So, again, from a colour perspective, this one is a little bit ugly to me. I hate to say it. You know, you've got this pattern which is just the same on the front and back. At least it is on the back. I think as a pattern, there is something about it, and it definitely brings through that Northern Lights feel. But as the base colour here, the kind of the turquoise or the mint, I'm not exactly sure which they've called it, is a little bit of a clash. It's quite an ugly combination. This is a third shirt. This is a very kind of third shirt colourway, isn't it? But definitely not enjoying this one at face value. Yours are contagious. Yeah, apologies, Stephen. I mean, when I'm basically just talking straight for about 2 hours, I can't avoid it. Thanks, Robert. Says Neem Olympic have Kipster shirts as well. Thank you, mate. That's good knowledge. Dennis says NWSL kit. It does have that kind of feel. It does indeed. There's a little flag detail, which is fine. Looks like it's kind of sublimated on the back. Definitely not a shirt for me. But again, the Northern Lights idea. There's a novelty factor there, and it is a third shirt. If you're going to do this sort of colorway, presuming this isn't your main colors, which it probably isn't, you might as well do it on the third shirt. Just looking at this, I believe this is a charity sponsor, and actually looking at the colours there, they are matched on this. So maybe this has been, I assume this has been driven by the branding of the charity, etc. Which would help explain the colour choice. But I do think ultimately it's not a very nice looking shirt, and I think the colourway is a little bit too much. So left disappointed by that one, but it's certainly notable, and you'd rather in some ways fly close to the sun and get burnt out than do nothing at all. Sport Recife. Now, these guys out of Brazil are one of a number of lucky clubs to be working with Umber, and I say lucky because Umber in Brazil, they just do great work. Now, first impression of this shirt is pretty strong. I think the crest, this style of crest, we've seen much higher quality TPU and plastic crests There's nothing wrong with this one. You've got the different textures which you like to see, but I think again when it comes to kind of, if you're really being picky, and that is what this show is all about, there are crests where, for example, you would have like the wording raised and you'd have a little bit more quality, so it's fine, but we've seen better of that style. The shirt as a whole though does look good, and I think, you know, I like the fact that I think this collar is one of the better collars we've seen today. I think particularly innovative, but I do think it suits the shirt quite well. There is a betting sponsor which is a letdown, but at least it's recoloured, and indeed you've got quite a nice good jock toe detail. Not many jock toe details really, and there should be more because I do think it's a good area to innovate on. It looks like there's a kind of train track pattern here, I'm not sure exactly, but you know, subliminal pattern, a relatively understated pattern in the red of the shirt. Daredevil says Brazil teaches the best crest in world football. They quite possibly do. There are a lot of good crests, and this is actually, I'd say, this is like a special crest thing, isn't it? I don't think it's the usual club crest, but yeah, they do absolutely. Mexico's a good chat as well. And Ian says the receiver shirt looks very QPR. It does look very QPR, very Dennis the Menace. But I actually really like this one. I do think this one is actually quite strong. I would be very comfortable putting this one in the Flames tier, albeit somewhat lower in the Flames tier, but I do like it, and I think this is very typical of Umbro in Brazil. It's a cliche on the channel. It's something we've talked about pretty much from day one, and I feel like in the last couple of years they've been a bit quieter, but there's signs of Umbro coming back to form in, again, where the place where I think they have done their best work for the past 5+ years. So that is Sport Recife. I think we could stick them here. I do like it quite a bit. And again, this keeps happening, but Umbro almost exactly in that place already. We'll nudge them down exactly 1 pixel. And that is Sport Recife home, and quite conveniently we have the away now to talk about. I do like it when we get to look at home and away, because of course, again, we talked about the contextual nature of football shirts. I think it's always interesting to see a home and an away, because sometimes if you've got, for example, a really daring home shirt, a quite relatively progressive home shirt, the away is a good opportunity to bring something traditional, and vice versa. If you have a home shirt which stays quite close to the brief, an away kit can offer something different. Or you have a shared design, which is a bit of a lost art, isn't it? But I do like that as well. So what have we got in the Sport Recife away shirt? Again, a very different approach, but I do like what we see. This kind of embossed pattern looks good. The 3 lions, I believe, as you have in the crest, and this is the more standard club crest. The pattern on the sleeves, this is one thing I like, guys, one thing which I talk about a lot. If you have shared elements, it doesn't have to be the same exact pattern, but when you have in the red here, this pattern is the same as the pattern on the sleeves. So a really nice element to connect home and away shirts. This collar style, it's fine. It's certainly, again, compared to a lot that we see today, one of the more reasonable ones. And the cuff pattern looks to be in the colours of red and black. An interesting choice, and I don't mind that at all. Sometimes it is nice to match your collar with your cuffs, but actually sometimes there's something wrong with having them different, and I do think the overall feel of the kit looks quite balanced. There is a betting sponsor, but you've also got the same jock toe detail in red this time. So I must say, I think this one actually has a lot of things going for it. And I'd almost want to put it above the home shirt. Maybe well, if not above, very close to. I do think it is a fairly strong 1-2 punch between home and away. And I think just seeing that pattern on the sleeves being the same as the pattern in the red section or the red hoops of the home, that kind of sold me on the kit. I think as a 1-2, as I say. So if that's the home, we'll stick the away just below, but ultimately I think this is an above average set of kits from Umbro, and in an in a competitive field again in Brazil. Lots of good kits to have come out of there, both historically and in the modern game. But I think Sport Recife will end up with one of the better home and away combos when all is said and done. Don't sleep on these. I think they do add a lot. What about Strasbourg and Adidas? Now Strasbourg playing in I think in Lyon. I'll be honest. My knowledge of French football is so bad that I couldn't have even told you that. What about Strasbourg? This kind of pinstripe, shadow stripe look has an inherently retro aesthetic about it. I don't mind it at all. The large sponsor, though it is quite garish and it clashes, that is definitely the kind of thing where you'd want to see. Usually it would be a kind of a bit of a negative, but that's a very French thing, isn't it? So in that sense, I can kind of almost excuse it, even though it does clash. I just say what I feel not cracking up with the collar and cuff remark. I've definitely slipped up in that area before, haven't I, to say the least. The one button look is not my favourite style by any means, but if you're going to do it, ultimately I don't think it feels at home with the shirt, even though it's not my personal favourite style. But we talked again about Adidas, and I do think the overall look of this one is good. The base of the shirt, the construction of this range of Adidas kits is good. I think it looks strong, and this is what's good about the template, guys. Adidas aren't afraid. Well, they're doing different things. For some shirts, they're actually, letting the shirt breathe. They're not adding like a secondary or tertiary colour here just for the sake of it. It wouldn't feel as at home here because you've got the collar, the kind of more traditional collar, and it feels, I think, again, you're in the interest of the shirt is at the top here. You don't need to have that section in white, and that's fine. I think the shirt is better for it. And obviously with the pinstripes, again, they're kind of the feature. So, ultimately, it works well here. It works well in shirts where there's more contrast. So, definitely glad to see a lot of what Adidas are doing this year. Banknote detail, a little bit basic, but there is at least something there. And again, the crest, simple embroidered patch, which is a fairly underwhelming style, but it is what it is. So, despite the huge sponsor, the very French oversized sponsor, somewhat dominating proceedings, I do think this one is somewhere in the region of the mid to high candle tier for Strasbourg. I think if I was more of a one button enjoyer, I would probably rate this one higher. It's personally not really my style, and again, I don't want to paint every every one button shirt with the same brush, but it's definitely not one that I'm too thrilled about. But there are some nice ones. So in terms of Strasbourg here, let's have a look. We've got some space there. Let's go there. And that is Adidas. And we'll nudge them down a couple of pixels. What else, guys? What else have we got? There is more. There is more to come. We have New Mexico United. Their Woggle kit. Now, I'm not sure. It does crack me up how the North American teams won't just call it an away or a third or a kit like that. It always has a name, a theme. I believe this is to be worn on pitch as well, which again is a criteria. So it says it was debuted here. Immediately drawn to the crest, which appears to be an iridescent crest, and hey, We've seen many of these in recent years. I would say the theme is just like it has been done increasingly more and more, but I do think there's just enough interest there that it doesn't feel too passe. But obviously, if teams continue to do that, in my opinion, might change. The sponsor here as well, in the same iridescent application, is a lot of fun. As a shirt, this looks quite cheap. This looks like it might even be made in-house because the materials do look very basic, and the construction of the shirt again is fine, but it is a little bit simple. You can see what looks like the keeper kit there, that iridescent theme, this time in a sublimated pattern. So I think ultimately this shirt does look, looking at the lack of a brown mark, I'm going to guess these are made in-house. I might be wrong on that. It's definitely a clash of what I think is quite a fun style with the iridescent nature of it, and indeed the iridescent applications, with what does look like quite a cheap shirt in terms of the materials and the construction. So we have to consider that's part of it. Obviously, our main focus on the hot wall when we're making shirts is on design rather than the kind of materials, but we do factor that in. Ultimately, I think with a high quality shirt, and essentially I think you would need the involvement of a bigger brand. This one feels a bit too much like, kind of a cheap way to go down the iridescent theme without really nailing it. But that, I don't want to take too much away from the kit. I think I'd still put it in the mid to high candle tier, and that is New Mexico United. I'm just going to see what other kits we have here today. So we've got a few more here. Okay, nice. So what we might do, guys, I think in order to keep the stream somewhat snappy, I think what I might do is finish on a few of the bigger, higher profile kits. In fact, we may even, I think what we'll do is, again, and I've got a job in my own time to go through and kind of fill some of the gaps. What we'll do is I'm going to rank now the PSV, the Betis shirt, and the PSG home shirt to finish. We're going to finish with a few big teams, and I think we'll end the stream somewhat soon because I think, again, we could keep going, but at the same time, I want to make sure we have enough time to talk about these three kits because I think each of them are quite distinct. And they are, with all due respect to some of the other clubs we passed over, they are some bigger clubs here. So let's finish with these three as we close the stream today. PSV, the PSV away shirt. A lot of buzz on this one with within the community, and I believe this is it's very heavily inspired by kind of test cards, and particularly the Philips circle pattern television test card. I'm sure if we search that, so the very famous kind of pattern, which quite nostalgic, and as a theme, hey, like there's certainly worse themes. It's a good way to get a lot of colours into the shirt, and the kind of glitchy style, I don't mind that at all. I'd be interested to see other versions of this one that were a bit less glitchy, and in some ways I feel like I'd want a bit of that glitchiness on the calves and probably in other areas of the shirt. But certainly in terms of the colourway and the overall look of it, it has a lot going for it. It's definitely the kind of shirt which I'd expect to be popular with the wider community. I do think it has a lot going for it. It's funny how, I mentioned we talked a lot about the Adidas short template. Certainly it looks like they're brothers in Puma. There are some similarities there in terms of the look, but even just here, it's kind of fun seeing those kind of three of the colours within that pattern being used on different sections of the kit, with the yellow or the luminous yellow on the socks, the pink on the shorts, and the light blue on the cuffs. So I think a lot to like about this one in terms of, again, a very distinctive colourway on the pattern, and I think the story is fun. It has, an interesting connection. I think if we could get some of that glitchiness into the other areas of the kit, we'd be pushing higher up the hot wall. As is, though, I do think I'd sneak it into the flame steel. I do like it enough to stick it in the flame steel, but it's not like I would in this current format at this kind of stage. It's definitely not a volcano tier contender, but lots to like for Puma and PSV. And again, this is their away shirt for next year, so we will see a lot more of the team in the kit. I think something like here feels good for PSV. And this is a Puma shirt. So Puma, I've been, of all the big brands, they are by far and away my least favourite of the big three. I often talk about the big three: Nike, Adidas, and Puma. Daredevil says, yeah, the rainbow glitchy thing is nice. I think it does look quite effective. Ian says it's like an inshirt with the RX3 little birds colourway. Yeah, it definitely has the kind of three little birds. It's kind of, the more kind of neon take on the three little birds. But that's cool. And what about Betis? Now this is their Forever Green shirt, which is kind of like almost like a charity shirt. I believe it's like the fourth kit. And a lot of people rightly pointing out that this shirt, which is all supposed to be about sustainability and about saving the planet, etc., even just producing a fourth kit kind of flies in the face of that. So those things aside, if we can push those things aside, this is one of the more out there shirts that Betis have done in this theme, if not the most out there. A really unusual shirt, which I believe is inspired or not inspired by drought, but essentially pointed to the issues of drought around the world. And it's a really kind of quite unusual look, obviously with the shorts, very, very kind of earthy tones, reminiscent of the third kit, the Africa kit that Puma did for their African nations. Some of you will remember. It's definitely one of the more unusual colorways, and it's hard to say that it looks good. It definitely is a bit jarring. No way, Stephen. Have a good day, my friend. Thanks again for the super chat on Tuesday. Yes, I will make sure to stand up and show off the jersey before I head off. But thank you, my friends. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, so it's funny because if you kind of cover the shirt, the tonal green look for Betis, I think looks quite nice. Probably just that would be a very good kit. Obviously, this is telling a story, but it doesn't look great. Ultimately, unless you're kind of into collecting crazy kits or unusual colorways, I don't think this is particularly strong. Robert's saying let's solve climate change by making more stuff. Exactly, it's hard to argue that, and I do think it's slightly tone deaf from Betis, but hey, this is something they've been doing for quite a few years now with their charity partners, or their foundation. I forget who it is that runs the campaign, but of all, like, that as a kit looks pretty strong. I think if we kind of ignored the kind of drought section, I think we could be looking at something here. It has to go further down. Now I would probably still put it like in the high candle, and I don't, despite how jarring the shorts are, I actually think I'd put it as high as here, because I do think, though it is a little bit ugly, I like enough about it to put it in that section of the tier, but we're still not talking about anything too high there. This being a Hummel shirt, we will knock them down slightly. But Hummel are still my guys, still a big fan of them. That is Betis. And now we finish with PSG's home shirt. Now, a lot of the talk on social media for PSG, or the PSG kit, has been around the release video where there was a heavy use of AI images, which weren't particularly vetted enough. So much so that we had some shots or generated images of the kit with kind of Adidas style 3 stripes on the socks and kind of gibberish in terms of lettering details. So there was a lot of very kind of clumsy aspects to the launch, to the incorporation of AI. But that aside, what is the kit like? I am not the biggest fan of the kind of hand-drawn style, painterly style elements of the kit. Though I will say that I think ultimately, having the hectare, those central elements, the central stripe, in that style, it's one of those points of difference we talked about. It's something to, which again is not new to this kit. PSG have done this quite a few times before, but it is something which provides a point of difference, and that's fine. But it's not really to my personal taste. Ultimately, it is almost completely standard, but it does have the hand drawn, the painterly element. But it is, really, I think if you like that style, of course, this is one you'll gravitate to. If you don't, it's simply going to be one you'd want to pass on. Qatar Airways have been breaking up that hectare or any PSG shirts in general for quite a while now. That's obviously not a positive though. There's a flag detail which is very, very basic. Nothing really to that. It's there. It's better than nothing, but that is almost completely standard. The shirt is completely, completely fine, but it's definitely not exciting. I think if I was more into that kind of style, that aesthetic, I would definitely rate this one higher. But I'm not really feeling this as a look, even though, the hectare as a theme, I think is a good one. A lot of home shirts in world football have these kind of, the base style. It's hard to innovate on year. Generally speaking, I do think PSG home shirts are often quite strong, but this one is, I would say, one of the more forgettable ones that the club have had. I would still put it something like here, because I do think, it feels good around where the Inter Star Trek shirt is there, which is of course the current season Inter shirt. Wait to see what the new season shirt is, but that is PSG. Daniel says boring, and then he says here that they use AI to promote it, and the socks were Adidas. Yeah, there was some really funny things, like some of the AI generations had like a collar pattern as well, so there was a lot of funny things there with the use of AI. But guys, that is the Hot Wall today, and we had some big releases we talked about. If I can recap quickly for us, we had City. I didn't really like that one, languishing down in the counter tier. By contrast, Arsenal, much better, and for me, one of the better home shirts we've had this year. Of course, we just talked about PSG, who landed kind of in between those two, and there was a bunch of other kits, but it's only going to get bigger, guys. There's only going to be more releases going forward. I think as well, we'll potentially look at focusing on specific shirts. I think something which I want to try is obviously we'll still cover as many teams as we can, but I think I will look at maybe focusing on specific teams to start a stream like we did today, just because I think it's quite nice to have that point of focus, but we don't just want to pay attention to the big teams, but that's something we may look at doing, especially when there's so many new kits coming out as the months roll on, and as we head into June and July, there's only going to be more new kits, so lots to come. But thank you for today. We've had a lot of viewers today, and it's been a lot of fun. Whether you're new and you've tuned in, like we had Knowledge at the start of the stream, shout out to you, Knowledge, for jumping in the chat, or you've been one of the regulars as well. Thank you for engaging, thank you for communicating, and as promised with Stephen, I will quickly show off the Jags jersey again. in all its glory. We can see there is the front of the jersey. These kind of NFL jerseys where they've got the kind of aerated elements, they are quite comfy, quite good on a hot day. And we see as well the back of the kit there with Phil 77, which is pretty funny. But I it's funny. It's way too big for me. Even though I bought this was it 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, in fact like 15 years ago. Why 77? A great question. Yeah, I would be an O lineman were I 77. One of my favourite numbers is 7. I have a few favourite numbers, but for me there was something kind of funny about getting a double-digit number, and it was I was basically just kind of going out there thinking, this is not a number typically you'd see in football, in soccer. Not a choice I would recommend at all. But I couldn't resist a funny purchase like that. So that was this is one of the earliest items in my collection across all sports. I'm very excited this year because the Jags have teased a throwback jersey, which I'm going to be buying as soon as that comes out, and just to continue the NFL conversation. Very excited the Jags are playing the Bears. One of my good friends is a Bears fan, so that is a must. We'll head down to London, I think, for that. And I've not visited the Spurs stadium either, so that'll be fun. I'm glad to see it because I've been to Wembley a bunch of times, but mostly for NFL games. But very excited about that. So that should be sweet. Thanks, Daredevil. Yeah, the Thursday streams have been sweet. They've been busy, and I think this slot is good. I'm excited to try doing this simultaneously on Twitter. I think we could have a good crowd for that. Because my audience is just much bigger on Twitter or X, of course. So I'm excited to try that as well. But thank you guys. On your way out, don't forget to subscribe if you are new and you've not done already. And you can also, of course, check out the Patreon. There's a bunch of stuff there. You get a shirt as part of your support. After 6 months of support at the replica tier, the basic tier, you get a shirt which I've designed with Icarus. And that's actually going to be updated later in the year with my new shirt. I've done another design for the Icarus Cup, and my current patrons saw the whole process of that. I shared images of that, and that's one of the things you get in my Patreon. You get behind the scenes looks at my designs when I'm creating them. I even get feedback from patrons as well for designs and that sort of stuff. What club to support? I'm actually a Liverpool fan, Daredevil. I kind of have affiliations with other teams, but yeah, since a kid I've been a Liverpool fan, for better or for worse. Largely for better in recent years, with Jurgen departing. That's definitely going to be the end of an era. But and obviously this year, somewhat underwhelming finish to what was a fun season in some ways. But not to blame injuries, but that definitely hurt. Robert. Slot, I can only apologise on behalf of Liverpool. He sadly, the team he built there and the way you guys are playing was too good. Hopefully Feyenoord can. Have they got a replacement lined up? I don't know. I wish you guys every success. It's fair to say, and Adidas really are increasing their stable of teams. Yeah, the likes of obviously Liverpool heavily rumoured to join, and Villa and Newcastle next year. Obviously Arsenal, and United. If United stay, I don't know if they will, but yeah, they definitely are really putting a lot of their focus in the Premier League, and that's a strong stable of teams. And Fulham as well, Leicester, Forest as well, right? So there's quite a few clubs. Hopefully, enough clubs get some of their best work, because Adidas is one of those brands, because they're so big. If you have a kind of anything out of the side of the top 2 tiers of their kind of contracts, they can be a bit middling. Hopefully, for the sake of those teams, we see some good stuff. And Leeds, if they get promoted, it's going to be tough, isn't it? Against who are they playing? There's Southampton, West Brom, Leeds, and I forget the other team. Norwich, isn't it? So yeah, very interested to see how that shakes out in the Championship. Guys, always good to chat at the end of the stream, have a bit of a debrief. Thank you for everyone who's tuned in once again. I believe we'll be back on Tuesday, Thursday, so another eBay Hot Ball doubleheader. And my next video is going to be a fun one. I've got an unboxing video. UEFA Champions League, of all people, sent me a shirt via a partner to unbox on the channel. So I won't say any more than that, but you can probably guess where it's coming from. Well, I'm sure you can probably Google it. But that's going to be a fun unboxing video, which we'll have on the channel very soon. And there's other videos, of course, lined up. Even though they're not as regular, I simply can't get, by the time I film and edit, it takes up so much time. It's no wonder YouTubers, a lot of them have kind of full-time editors and stuff, because it is time consuming. But there's some fun stuff coming up on the channel alongside these streams, so do make sure you check that out. And if you're subscribed, as most of you probably are, you'll get up-to-date info. Yeah, Chelsea, oh man, talking of injuries, you guys have had it pretty bad as well. But all in all, there's some stuff. I think if I was a Chelsea fan, despite the obviously topsy-turvy season, there's light at the end of the tunnel, I would say. But hey, that's another story for another day. Thank you guys for your company. I'll see you very soon for another video or stream. All the best. Take care. See you soon.